Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality. So subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So yes, welcome to another special edition of Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, celebrating our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. So today I'm going to be reading from my Asexual Perspectives book. If you haven't already got a copy of this, be sure to grab one on Amazon, or you can order it from any good bookshops. So let's get into today's chat. So why do you feel in general that society doesn't accept asexuality as a form of sexual orientation in its own right, and what can be done about this is a question I asked 46 asexuals, and myself for you in this book. So this is Dee's story. Mostly I think it's a simple case of being skeptical of that which you're unfamiliar. Oh, Minky, hello, nice to see you. I've got your part of your story to read out for this one, actually prepared, so you came at the right time. So yeah, I'm talking about Dee's story. So I'll start that bit again. I got very excited. I interviewed Minky on this channel, by the way, in January this year. So yeah, it's a good interview. Check it out. Look for it in the search on my channel. So mostly I think it's a simple case of being skeptical of that which we're unfamiliar. Well, they put with which you're unfamiliar. And arguably, it's easier for asexuality to go under the radar than, say, homosexuality, because there's a lack of desire rather than a presence of a lack of conventional desire. I also think we faced a problem where not having sex, particularly in women, is associated with oppression or puritanical ideals among the progressive folks who normally might usher in a non-heteromantic subgroup. I think this viewpoint is extremely harmful to sexual and asexual folks alike. Women should be empowered to be sexual when they'd like and to not be sexual when they'd rather not. Above all else, more awareness is going to help both of the issues. We're getting there slowly. I think this is a really important point because it's important to express your own sexuality, whether that's asexuality or, like this person says, homosexuality or whatever sexuality you are, and however that form will take. For example, when I interviewed Minky, Minky's on the aromantic part of the asexual spectrum, and he would consider a polyamorous relationship, whereas I am heteromantic and I'm fiercely monogamous. So we're both asexual, but we're two different types of asexuals. So I think in any type of sexual orientation, there's always variables from person to person. So I don't think people should tell someone what to do and how to be in their sexuality. I think it's up to them to be free within their own sexual orientation. And I think this is so important because people believe that asexuals are supposed to behave a certain way, but not all asexuals live up to the stereotype of how people think they should be. For example, some asexuals do have sex. I'm an asexual who has had sex in the past, although I was doing it because I thought I had to as part of a normal relationship because I didn't know any different at the time. And even though I rather have not have bothered with it, it was what was expected in a relationship. And I didn't even know asexuality was a thing or existed back then. So I was none the wiser, but I probably had sex less than most heterosexuals, I would have thought. But every asexual person is different, and some do participate in sex. It doesn't stop them being asexual. Asexuality is based on a lack of sexual attraction, not a lack of sexual action. And I very much am a sex repulsed for me personally asexual these days, but I personally don't mind if someone wants sex, likes it, needs it, enjoys it, and it's consensual. It doesn't bother me. I don't want to take part in it, but I'm not interested, and I wouldn't be interested in having a romantic relationship with a guy who needed that from me or another woman while with me, because I am monogamous, right? So that wouldn't work for me. But every person's different, and I don't like even taking my clothes off in front of a guy these days. It's just not nice for me. I don't appreciate that. I don't feel comfortable with it. But then some other asexuals are perfectly fine with nudity. Some asexuals are perfectly fine with cuddling naked in bed and stuff like that. So every asexual is different, and asexuals are not suppressed sexuals. There's a very clear distinction. There's some people that come into the sphere of asexuality and they aren't actually asexual. They're like repressed, but they're not doing asexuals any favors, because that's not what asexuality is. Asexuality is not about you being repressed or suppressing your sexual urges or feelings or emotions. It's not about that. It's about living your true, authentic self and leaning into the fact you don't experience sexual attraction, you don't experience it in the usual way. For someone who's a pure asexual like me, I don't have any sexual attraction at all whatsoever. So because I don't have any sexual attraction at all whatsoever, it means that I don't get those needs or urges or wants for partnered sexual intercourse. I don't see a guy and think, oh, I want to have sex with you, even if I'm kissing a guy for a long period of time. So I'm not suppressing those feelings that I don't have. I hope that makes sense. So someone who's celibate, for example, and they're not asexual, they're abstaining from sex for whatever reason. Could be religious reasons, could be because they're conserving their sexual energy and things like this. But by suppressing and repressing it, they're not allowing themselves to do that. That's not the same as asexuality, where I'm just not getting those feelings. I don't feel that way. I don't get that urge. I don't get that need or that want. It doesn't ever compute in my brain that, oh, I see a guy, I like him, I want to have sex. I see a guy, I like him, and I aesthetically attracted to him, want to slog his face off. And that is still rare for an asexual, because a lot of asexuals are not that into kissing, but I'm super into kissing, which is why it's difficult for me to find a partner, because a lot of asexual guys I come across are not into snogging. That means full-on passionate kissing. Right? That's too sexual for them, or just too much for them, right? But then sexuals expect that to come with sex, whereas that is my equivalent to their sex, if you like. That is my tongue is doing the making love, if you like, not the genitalia. So that's the way I am. But every asexual person's different, and I think that's important to recognize. So we're going to take Zoe's story in Asexual Perspectives book now. So why do you feel in general that society doesn't accept asexuality as a form of sexual orientation in its own right, and what can be done about this? I think the term is too alien for them. They cannot relate to this concept. Therefore, it cannot exist. If you have no sex, then you cannot have a sexual orientation, which we know is not true, because obviously there are people who don't have sex for years who are, for example, heterosexual. They just don't find someone suitable to have sex with, or maybe for whatever reason they haven't been able to do it. Maybe they're depressed or something else has happened. They've gone through a divorce and they're like, oh, I'm not interested in having sex again, you know, with a person for a while, because they're put off sex for life and this type of thing. There can be a number of reasons. There can be illness, sickness, disability, you know what I mean? I think this term should be added to, let's talk about asexuality now. I think this term should be added to any sexual education and human biology taught in schools, if not already done so. Children and teenagers need to hear it from a young age, so they will grow up with it and know it is a valid concept, and that it can be applied to them, as the case may be, without fear or ridicule or rejection or misunderstanding. I think this is a really important point, because there are a lot of kids right now in schools that are going to be very lonely, upset, worried that they're not feeling the same as, you know, the other children in school. There's something different about them. They're not quite sure maybe what it even is. And they just hearing all this stuff like getting off with each other and who's got to first base, third base, or whatever they talk about these days. Do you know what I mean? To do with sexual connotations and, you know, are you doing it yet? And, you know, if they're all their friends are having sex and they're not, they might think, well, is there something wrong with me and I'm broken? And I'm here to tell you, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. People can know that they are asexual from a very young age. Hello, Heather. Heather says, I wish society would teach different types of love. I agree. I agree, Heather, with that. It's so important. One of the people in the Asexual Perspectives book actually talks about different types of love in here as well. So to continue with Zoe's story, as for adults, exposure is needed. Visibility through media attention, newspaper articles, internet, books, TV, movies, documentaries, etc., so that the term asexuality becomes commonplace, valid, understood and accepted, not just a passing fad. It should also be added to the curriculum for medical students. Doctors also need to realize asexuality exists, that it is valid, and that their asexual patients are normal in this sense. They do not have a low sex drive, are not inhibited, frigid, prudish, and they most certainly do not need to relax. I wonder if it shows I've had experience with this type of narrow-mindedness. So, yeah, for the first time ever in my life, December last year, I got written on my medical records by a physiotherapist who I talked to over the phone because my own physiotherapist was not available at that time, that I had a sexual dysfunction. And I'm like, what the F, you know, because it's like, I don't have a sexual dysfunction. And I can only think it's because I said I'm asexual. Do you know what I mean? I don't have a sexual dysfunction. It's really annoying. I even said that to an email to my doctor, but I said it in an email full of a load of other stuff. So I might have to like correct it again, because I did say that's not right. Do you know what I mean? So I don't like that because it's completely wrong. But that's the first time ever. And I have told doctors before, this was a physiotherapist, not doctor, but I have told I've probably told my physiotherapist, my normal one, and I've told doctors before that I'm asexual, and they've never written anything like that. But it's horrible. This is asexuality. It's not a dysfunction. It's a sexual orientation, which I'm very proud to be part of. So the rest of Zoe's story, people know and believe the term asexual when applied to plants and amoebas. Why is it so difficult to believe it also applies in the human realm? I think it's because people are always afraid of what they don't know or understand. If you are asexual, you must be a freak, and freaks scare people. I think this is really important because I do think there's a lot of weight in what Zoe's saying, that people get scared of what they don't understand, and they get scared of what makes them feel uncomfortable. And when something's very different to them, it can make them feel very uncomfortable. But it's a shame because I personally like being different. I like being quirky. I've always liked being different, even before I found out I'm asexual. And so for me, I think it's quite exciting and interesting to be with someone who's a different sexual orientation, if you know what I mean, rather than just being with someone who's simply heterosexual, although I've only been with heterosexuals in the past. Do you know what I mean? But I think people could look at asexuality as something different, fresh, and interesting, because it means that we're not assessing the person on their genitalia and how much they can perform sexual intercourse or sexual acts. We're looking at how the person is with us in terms of personality, in terms of intelligence, in terms of the way they talk to us, in terms of the way they express themselves with us, in terms of common interests, in terms of hobbies, in terms of how we get on, in terms of conversation. We're thinking about all the other things that are essential to a relationship. And I think that's a good thing, because so many people focus on sex as the main thing in sexual attraction, which can actually be like a band-aid to cover up a whole load of stuff in a relationship that isn't right. So I think people should be positive about asexuality. Minky, I imagine they're also used to the term meaning reproduce on your own and not really thinking that words can have more than one meaning. Yeah. I think they probably are. But I mean, there are asexuals, I guess, that would have children on their own, but there are heterosexuals that would have children on their own, you know, with a sperm donor or whatever. But yes, I think they are. They can't get their head around asexuality being a real concept with humans. I've had people before going, "That's not real for humans." I'm like, well, I'm real. I'm asexual. I'm human. And obviously, people in this chat are like, if asexuals didn't exist, then this book wouldn't exist, because these people wouldn't be able to speak in it. There are 47 asexuals, including me, in this book. Minky's one of them, by the way, and in chat. So if we didn't exist, this book wouldn't exist. Do you know what I mean? And neither would other books for asexuals, and neither would like my t-shirts I sell on Redbubble under Asexualise or Amazon. Do you know what I mean? Minky, I mean in the sense of raw meaning of the word, like even sperm donors need an extra source, so it's not really asexual in that sense. Yes, I totally agree. Yes, we can't actually reproduce ourselves without a sperm. You're totally correct. So in that way, it's not asexual. I understand what you mean in the sense of like well, asexuality means lack of sexual attraction, doesn't it? But in the sense of an amoeba, when they reproduce, they don't need any other input to do it. So people think sex is a bond. However, there's a different type of bond instead of sex. Yes, there's lots of different types of bonds instead of sex, Heather. You're completely right. There are many different types of bonds. I mean, when I love a person deeply, I have like an emotional bond with them, a spiritual bond, an intellectual bond, and a kissing bond. Aesthetic bond. I have lots of different types of attraction, right? But you could say that even if you're highly aesthetically attracted to someone, you could call that attraction. But if the other person feels the same way, then you could have like an attraction bond, if that's the way you want to look at it as well. But yeah, intellectual, spiritual, emotional bond is how I really love a person, with lots of kissing. I am very into kissing. I am seriously considering an AI robotic boyfriend in the future, because he will not tire of kissing me. It'd be great. Anyway, I started to write my AI, how to date an AI bot book again last night, in case you didn't realize. That's why I'm quite like smiling about it right now. So, yeah. So Molly's story, why do you feel in general that society doesn't accept asexuality as a form of sexual orientation in its own right, and what can be done about this? People think that sex is so important that you can't love people without having sex. Education and visibility can help teach people that love can be nurtured without sex, which is very important. Heather, laugh out loud, they're probably true about AI. Yes, I am writing the how to date an AI bot book, because, you know, not many guys can keep up with my stamina of kissing without needing sex as well. They have to, if they kiss me, they can't have sex because I won't let them. I'm not interested in sex, and I make that clear. Right. Anon's story. Why do you feel in general that society doesn't accept asexuality as a form of sexual orientation in its own right, and what can be done about this? So Anon says, I feel like this is the case because society doesn't hear about people never having sex or craving it. We are the 1%, and even in this 1%, we may have never heard of this being possible. We are so unheard of and misunderstood that it's only natural for society to bash that which it doesn't recognize. So when somebody declares the inability to see others in that way, it's only natural for those who can to say something is wrong with this person. Oh, you can't fall in love. Do you never have urges? There's a pill for that. I hate these types of sayings. Even though we may not see ourselves as a problem other than in romantic relationships with an allosexual, I think visibility and communication can help combat this, such as what this book will do. We speak up, we change the world. Just because we're 1% doesn't mean we don't have a voice to be heard. So yes, please get a copy of this book, Asexual Perspectives, if you haven't already. You can get this from Amazon. So yeah, it's very important. I do think that books are very important. I'm trying to find 5 Mark 2 ends one. Yours is Minky's is the last one I've got earmarked already before he came in chat. So there we go. Heather, rebirth means changing, not always having children. Example, art can be your journey. Very interesting, Heather. You can also have a rebirth of identity as well. So it's very interesting. So why do you feel in general that society doesn't accept asexuality? This is Isadora's story as a form of sexual orientation in its own right, and what can be done about this? Oh, by the way, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. That'd be great. We've been told over and over that sex and romance, specifically hetero, is the be-all and end-all of human experience. That sex is the best thing people can do, and you should always be working towards making yourself sexually attractive, and that you should stay on the lookout for potential partners. Obviously, boys get a different slant on this narrative than girls, but the basic story is the same. Sex is also sold as the only form of intimacy that is valuable. So if you're very deep and intimate friends with someone, you're just friends, and sex is next level. So if you haven't slept with someone, you obviously don't know as much about them. I mean, this is absolute load of rubbish. I'm very, very close to my best friend, Andy, and we share a lot together, even though we're not in a romantic relationship. So he's into guys more than women. So if you want to know. So yeah, although he does have attraction for women as well, but he has sexual attraction for guys, and I'm asexual. So that doesn't really work, does it? But we are really close and we share a lot with each other. Just because we're not in a romantic relationship doesn't mean to say that there's not a valuable bond there. And even in a romantic relationship, you know, with kissing and cuddling, you don't have to have sex to make it an actual relationship. It really annoys me when I hear so many people go, oh, well, you're just friends then. It really pees me off. Really, really pees me off. Because I'm like, no, I don't snog my friends. I don't go around snogging my best friend Andy, for example. That's reserved for a guy in a romantic relationship with me. Do you know what I mean? I don't go sitting on my best friend's lap. That's reserved for a romantic relationship. Do you get my meaning? So there's forms of intimacy that I wouldn't have with a friend that I would have in a romantic relationship. And you know, there's lots of different forms of intimacy. There is intellectual intimacy, when you're having intellectual conversations and you're really understanding each other and you're having a similar sort of mindset and an intellectual level, right? There's intellectual conversation where you can respect each other's conversations, and maybe you disagree. You could find that attractive because, you know, you're able to have a conversation without agreeing with everything the other person says, but it is like an adult intellectual discussion, if you know what I mean. Like, oh, I like this, I believe that, but I respect that you don't believe the same as me, and you like this, I respect that you like that, and I want to know about that because you're my friend. This type of conversation. Or you have an intellectual bond where you actually have a very similar mindset and way of thinking. So if you're in a romantic relationship and you've got that bond of a similar way of thinking, it's like a more natural to know what the other person might do or want or need, for example, because you already feel that way yourself. So that makes things more easy, if you know what I mean. Or you might just have very complementary mindsets. But I think if you're on the same sort of wavelength, then it's easier, it's more flowing relationship. Same as with spirituality. If you kind of both feel that you spiritually are drawn together and meant to be together, like soulmateship, then you're more likely to stay together, in if that's a main factor for you of what keeps you bonded. But obviously, if the other elements of compatibility aren't there, then that won't work. So in any relationship, you've got to have compatibility. Obviously, in a romantic relationship, if you're spending a lot of your time with that person, because in a romantic relationship compared to friendship, you're usually spending a lot more time with that person. Most people live with their romantic partner, or at least see them a lot more than they would see their friends. That's not necessarily the same for asexuals, but in traditional relationships, that's what would happen. And asexuals do often have friends that are heterosexuals, and they see their romantic partner more than they see them, for example. So if you are in an actual relationship, you usually spend a lot more time with that person. Therefore, the more either similarities you have in terms of goals, ambitions, and dreams, where you want to go in life, where you're heading in life, the mindset, the spirituality, if you have the same or very complementary ways of being in those ways, then that's going to work out well. But say you're very different, but you're trying to spend a lot more time together, that can be a lot harder, because it's going to make you feel awkward with each other because you're just too different. So this is how romantic relationships can be different than friendships, because traditionally you spend a lot more time with your romantic partner, which means those differences are much bigger gap, because you've got to be in each other's spaces a lot more, and often in each other's personal spaces, so that the gap feels a lot wider. Whereas friends, it doesn't matter as much, with because you're not in each other's spaces as much. You've got more distance and space to express yourself and do your own thing, if that makes sense. I'm not saying in a romantic relationship you shouldn't have your own space and do your own thing, but you've got to have a certain amount of time you spend with each other and accommodate each other and bring the other person into your life and world, and usually spend more time with them, because you are having to make decisions together more, because you're a couple rather than an individual. When two friends decide whether they'll meet together at a certain time and date, as a couple, you're kind of always in each other's lives. Although me and my best friend, my best friend's always messaging me, but he helps me a lot because I've got disabilities as well. So he helps me beyond what a normal friend would do. He helps me like with food shopping, for example, and cleaning and stuff like that. That is beyond what a normal he's my best friend, but it's beyond what most normal best friends would do, I think. Do you know what I mean? So he does extra things that wouldn't be normally expected. I don't expect him to do that, because I appreciate it doesn't have to do that for me. I always know that, right? But what I'm saying is usually with friends, that wouldn't be happening very often, I don't think. Although I do know some other people that have special needs and disabilities where their friends do help them, so it depends on who your friends are. So yeah, I think it's very important to choose your friend wisely and to choose your partner wisely. Also, something that's not in here, but I wanted to talk and bring it up, is that what really annoys me on dating sites is when someone says, "Oh, I understand your asexuality and I'm fine with it," and then they're really not. I haven't done a live stream about it yet or a video about it, but there was a guy that came back into my life yesterday. Right. Well, I didn't see his message. I was messaging Minky actually on Instagram. And this guy put a message in my inbox. We're not friends on Instagram. We're not connected there. So I didn't see his message from the 11th of July till yesterday, the 19th. And he's like, "Oh, hey, I've been thinking about you these past few weeks, and I'd like to have a word. Can I have a word with you on a call?" I think was his message. And so I messaged him saying, "I don't know who you are. Like, how do we know each other?" Basically, can you remind me how we know each other? Because I can't recall. And he's like, "Oh, we had a date like a few years ago." And then he said the exact date. I'm like, "Well, when was that? Like, what did we do?" And so he actually said it was the 9th of April 2023. And then he told me, he goes, "Oh, I wasn't in alignment with what you wanted then, because you would want our relationship to go public." Bear in mind, I wasn't in a relationship with him. I was having a date with him. And he said, and I wasn't happy with that. But now I think I'm fine and not worried about what people think. But he hadn't changed at all. You know what I mean? Just because someone comes back into your life doesn't mean to say they deserve to be in your life again or to stay in your life, right? And so within a very short space of time, he went from like chatting like that to then saying, "I'd like to have a coffee with you." He doesn't even live near me. And I'm saying, well, what about the call? I prefer a call like you suggested. And then I was remembering what he was like. And then he just goes, oh, I'll let you know when I'm available. I thought, well, clearly you're not that interested in me. If all of a sudden you're saying, oh, yeah, I can meet up with you. But then if it's for a call, I'll see when I'm available. That's a very casual, flippant thing. Like, can't be asked, basically. You know what I mean? If you're really wanting to come back into someone's life, you don't treat them that way. So, so what happened was, in the end, I just said, well, actually, I do remember you. I met you through Facebook dating, and I remember you said on Facebook dating that you could be with an asexual person. But when I met you in person, you said you couldn't because you were worried about what your family thinks and because of your culture. I said, so you weren't being honest with me. I said, so I don't think I've changed my mind about having a call or meeting up with you in person because I'd rather protect my peace and be with people who I trust. And I can't trust someone who wasn't honest with me, you know, because it really hurt me when you said that and then you weren't consistent. You changed what you were saying. So that was the end of that. He had an hour to respond. I let him respond and he didn't bother. So I blocked him because I'm not having a guy like that back in my life. He lied to me. So I do remember him now. But do you know what I mean? It's just really bad when someone's like comes back into life, because I was really upset at the time. He's a guy that really broke my heart on a date because he did lie. You know, he lied when he on Facebook dating. Before the date, he said, I'll be fine with an asexual girl, no problem at all. Then when I met him in person, he said no. And so it was really bad, but he still wanted to be my friend at that point afterwards the next day. And I just said I couldn't do it. It's too painful for me. And so I blocked him on Facebook. So that's how he contacted me on Instagram. But he said, I've been thinking about you these past few weeks. I thought, oh, right, you still haven't met a girl that made you feel as good as you felt with me. And that's why you come back to me, basically. Because he said it's experiences that's happened in his life that he would talk to about over a coffee. And as to why he feels like he's in alignment with me, which clearly he's not. If he can't even be bothered, goes, I'll let you know when I'm free. You don't speak to someone like that. If you really care about someone and enthusiastic, want them back in your life, you say sorry for the bullshit you put them through, and you prove that you've really changed. But clearly, he's not changed at all. So I was going to do like a separate video about this, and I might still do a little one or something. But I think, or not, as the case might be. But I wanted to bring it up now because it's so important that people do lie, and it's upsetting. You know, like society doesn't take asexuality seriously. They don't treat us with respect, if you know what I mean. It's like asexuality is not a disease, it's not some illness. I didn't even understand why his family wouldn't like it, because a lot of cultural families, some of them don't have sex anyway. I believe from memory he's Pakistani, and I watched a movie at the cinema where they made a joke that, after the Pakistani gets married, they don't have sex anymore. Not because they're asexual, but because that's their culture. I don't know if that's true or not, but I watched a film that said that in it, and which was a very interesting film, actually. I did review it a long time ago on this channel. But do you know what I mean? It's like he comes back into my life, and it's like clearly nothing's changed. I think he just wanted to meet up for a snog, to be honest, for a big kiss. That's what I reckon. He didn't say that to me. Heather, people don't respect other people's truths. Yeah, I totally agree, Heather. You know, they don't, you know, and it's quite selfish of a guy to do that, to come back in and just basically blatantly say, oh, I think I'm in alignment with you now. It's like, well, it's not my problem if you think you're in alignment with me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you broke my heart, you lied. If he hadn't lied, it might be a different story, but he did lie. Do you know what I mean? If he was honest and he just said, you know, like, I just don't think I'm at that point in my life where I can give you what you need, and he hadn't lied, I wouldn't even have met him though, up with him and had the date, had he not lied. And no, I'm guessing that's why he lied, as a form of deception to reel an asexual person in to thinking that a person can be with them without sex. And then they get them on the date, and then they decide, I can't actually have this because the person's actually serious, right? But to come back again, but I said, like, basically, what's made you change your mind? And he's like, some experiences and mindset shifts. And I'm like thinking to myself, right, really? Do you know what I mean? And he wouldn't tell me what they were without meeting me for coffee, which I said, no, I prefer the call that you suggested. And then he's like, I'll let you know when I'm available. And I'm like, that's just a cop out. That is just such a cop-out. So I reckon he just wanted to date with me because he said, oh, we were kissing throughout a lot of the movie. Because he said, oh, we went to the movie. Because I said, what did we do on this date? He goes, oh, we went to the movies. I'm like, what did we watch? He told me one of the movies we watched. I think he was looking at our old Facebook messages because he was very precise with the date and everything. Guys don't remember dates usually like that, like the actual date of our date and what films we saw. I reckon he got me on Facebook Messenger, and I reckon that he was reading from that. But he's blocked on Facebook, so that's how he must have contacted me through Instagram. And he must have thought, oh, well, there's no other girls. Like, I remember that girl, you know, like I haven't any other girls better than her since. Because I remember when I saw him, he said, I've never, ever felt so loved by anyone in my life until like being with you. Like being with you, I've never felt this was just a date he was on. He said, I've never in my entire life felt as much love from anyone as I have on this date with you. I think he said not even by his family. And so I thought to myself, well, you're going to go through life then just accepting less than that full love that you know that you would be able to feel with me, even though this was a date and it wasn't actually a relationship. That's what he actually said to me. And so I just thought, you're just going to accept less your whole life then. You're just going to be with other girls or other people, and you're never going to feel that full expression of love that you felt with me, maybe, right? And then over 2 years later, he's come back into my life, which he's out of it again now because he doesn't deserve to be back in it. And I gave him a chance, though. I did message him back, and I did offer him a call. Like, if he's really interested, he'd be going, yeah, sure, I'm free whenever you are. You know, I can make what time for you. And he didn't. Minky, I enjoy looking back on dates, but more so as a hobby rather than whatever this guy was doing, especially given what's gone on for me. But I don't be weird with people about it. Laugh out loud. Thank you. So it was hard for me because I really did like this guy and I felt really good chemistry with him, but obviously I'm asexual, he's sexual. And do you know what I mean? And it's hard because I do remember kissing him a lot. I remember kissing him in the cinema and I remember it. But he did break my heart because, you know, he lied, saying he could be with an asexual. But then when we got talking, he's like, oh no, my family would not approve. I couldn't tell my family, I bring shame on my family with the community. I'm thinking, what the hell? I'm like, how do you know your mum and dad aren't asexual and not having sex? Do they tell you that? I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you're with someone who's not having sex with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, because how does he know? He doesn't, does he? He's not going to ask his parents that, but I know they're very strange in different cultures. I say strange for me and what I want. Do you know what I mean? They probably think British culture is very strange or not very good either, but that's fine. They're entitled to believe that as well. But what I'm saying is it's not fair of someone to say to an asexual person, I can be with an asexual person, go on the date because they want the date, and then not actually be true about that and honest. It's deception, isn't it? It's not good. So the fact that I even talked to this guy on Instagram, at first I honestly didn't know who he was. I saw his picture and thought, oh, he's a really good looking guy that I would usually be interested in. Oh my God, I forgot my chargers in my bedroom. I might have to take you in my bedroom quickly. While I'm carrying on talking, this should be interesting, shouldn't it? I usually have my adapter for my laptop in my office, but it's still in my bedroom. So I was naughty. I didn't check that before I was here, but I've got it. Anyway, so yeah, what I was saying was that it's not very good for someone to come back into my life who lied to say they could be with an asexual girl when they couldn't. And nothing's really changed. Do you like my throw on my chair? Nothing's really changed. Do you know what I mean? And so I was really heartbroken at the time. You know, I was really, really heartbroken. And to do that to an asexual person, I think is horrible. But it's not just me that has that done to them. There's lots of people. So I would say if you're asexual, you know, society doesn't accept asexuality a lot of the time. But I think personally that asexuality should be much more wider known about on dating sites. I think it would help us out a lot if people actually knew what asexuality was, if all the myths and stereotypes were busted through. I mean, I'm on Badoo, dating app, right? And it has a category for asexuality, but a lot of people don't even know what asexuality is. Anyway, I'm going to get on to Minky's story because Minky is in the chat. Oh, we need to get on to 5 Mark 2N is Minky's other name, in case you didn't know. His story is on page 406 of the book, Asexual Perspectives book. Get a copy if you haven't already. Minky's got a copy. So, yeah, 406. So, why do you feel in general that society doesn't accept asexuality as a form of sexual orientation in its own right, and what can be done about this? This was Minky's answer at the time I interviewed him. Because a lot of people in the world are sexual and not enough word is being spread about asexuality for those who are asexual but not as confident. To feel confident about being open about their asexuality. This is just my opinion. So in other words, he is saying that because there's not enough awareness of asexuality, a lot of asexuals aren't confident enough about talking about their asexuality and being open about it. And I think that's totally true. Because it's difficult, isn't it? So I always say to people, it's really important to talk about your asexuality, to share that with people, your friends, your family, people who are strangers, don't know you, on dating apps, everywhere. And they're like, well, I want to keep it private. And obviously, everyone's entitled to keep it private. It's their life. They can do what they like. But there is a big reason why that I say that. And that's because as a community, we will only grow in impact in the world if we talk about asexuality more and if more and more people come out as asexual to the public. Because there's security and safety in numbers, there's impact in numbers. And the more people you have, the bigger the voice of those people are in terms of the amount of people and how loudly people talk about, in other words, like having channels like this, the more we're going to be able to spread the awareness of asexuality on a bigger scale and enable people like heterosexuals, for example, which is the biggest population of sexuality, to understand us more, to know that we are real, we exist, we are here in numbers. There's not just a few people saying they're asexual. It's a real thing, right? It's more believable if there's more people who say they're asexual. If they are, I don't want people to lie about it. But it's more believable if people come out about asexuality and being asexual and talk about it and express themselves asexually. Because the more people know about us, the more they get comfortable with us, the more they'll accept us. Because the theme throughout this book on this particular topic is all about people are uncomfortable about what they don't know and they don't understand. So the more we talk about asexuality, the more we come out about being asexual, and the more they see asexuals around them and amongst them, the more they'll come to accept us, because what's not normal to them will become more normal. We live in an AI age now, right? Years ago, people would probably have been locked up in jail for even implying that AI is going to be a real thing in the future and there's going to be real robots, not just in movies. And people would have probably been given like severe mental health diagnoses for psychosis or something like that, saying, oh, it's totally untrue, you're talking rubbish. Do you know what I mean? It's not reality, it's just in movies. Now we are seeing real robots in real life having AI in them, some of which look very, very human-like, right? It's not far-fetched anymore, but people didn't believe that years ago, or thought it was going to be impossible, and that's just science fiction because they weren't used to it. And even now it's more of a controversial thing, but more and more robots are being integrated into society, into hospitals and medical care, into some countries, like I believe in China, they've already got like waiters and waitresses that are, well, I think it's waiters. I don't know if they've got waitresses as well, but they got robots basically serving food and drinks in restaurants, from what I understand already. And there are already over 50 different types of robots that do different things and that are being integrated more and more into society. So we're going to see an explosion of robots, humanoids, all over the world. And what was once fiction is becoming reality, right? And is reality already. So the way that they are getting that integrated into society, and the way people are getting to understand already that, oh, this is probably going to be the new normal soon, the more people are kind of come to terms with it and accept it and want even relationships with AI, which is, what my How to Date an AI Bot book that I'm working on is going to be all about, how to actually have a relationship with AI rather than just use it as a tool. So I believe that a lot of asexuals as well will go for relationships with AI, especially the asexuals that are sex repulsed and don't actually need sex in a relationship, because AI simulates an emotional connection, even though they don't experience emotions at this point in time, maybe forever. But there's skepticism about whether they will evolve to have their own emotions at one point. But that would be quite hard because they're a computer program, right? We have to remember they are a computer program, but they might be able to think for themselves in the future. But that doesn't mean to say there'll ever be emotions there. And if there is, they'll express them through a program-like way, not through a I'm going to cry now way. Unless, obviously, they develop tear ducts and stuff, or humanoids and things like that. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, what was strange and far-fetched, and even probably people would have been hospitalized for thinking is some sort of unrealistic situation. It's science fiction, and people didn't know the difference between science fiction and reality. People now can see that it is a reality. So what I'm trying to say is, although people might not understand the concept of asexuality, and years ago it wasn't even a term people have ever heard of, the more we talk about it, the more it's integrated in society, the more people come out about being asexual, the more asexuals they are in the world openly, the more people get used to being around asexuals, the more it'll become normal. And so therefore we will be able to have happier, more harmonious relationships, and people will be able to take us more seriously. So it's really important to spread awareness of asexuality whenever you can, for a collective community, not just for oneself. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this live stream. Thank you, Minky and Heather, for being in chat. Thank you, Minky, for being in the book. Appreciate you. Get a copy of Asexual Perspectives on Amazon, or you should be able to order it from any good bookshop if you haven't already. So you can read Minky's story and all the other stories in the book. And I'll see you soon next live stream or video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon and give this video a thumbs up. And I'll see you soon. Lots of love. Love to Minky, love to Heather, and anyone else who's watching. Thanks for the stream. See you later, Asexualise and Heather. Oh, thank you. Bye.